everyone, this is Ayushi Gupta. Welcome to the episode 43 of Microsoft Hour of Code, brought to you by Millionlights. Millionlights is a TV channel dedicated to improving the skills of people and their employability. Now let me tell you a little more about the Microsoft Hour of Code. Microsoft Hour of Code is a series of lectures, courses, and talks by experts who are going to be discussing the latest Microsoft technology topics related to programming and industry forecasts that are all focused on employability. These courses are basically for people pursuing computer science. This content has been created by our partner Microsoft. And today we have Susan and Christopher from Microsoft with us, who will be discussing on the beginning of websites with Python and Flask. Later on, we will start with building responsive UI with Bootstrap, and for that, we will be having Christopher and Jon with us to help you in building responsive UI with Bootstrap. So let's get started.
So now, let's take our Flask app and actually port this out to Azure. So let's start off by talking a little bit about what an Azure site is. And put simply, it's hosting for web applications. Does that slide say MVC?
No.
Does it say web forms?
No.
Does it say Node?
No.
Does it say PHP?
No, it just says web.
Web applications. Completely whatever technology it is that you want to use. So if you want to use MVC, if you want to use Node, if you want to use Flask, if you want to use fill in the blank, we can host it. So that's the great part, is that it doesn't matter what technology it is that you're using. The next big thing is that Azure will scale. So if you want to just go in and create a little test site, you can do that. If you want to create a full enterprise application that's going to scale, have global failover, and the whole 9 yards, automatic backup, you can do all of that. So you can start very, very small and grow this out to very big. Now, of course, the next question then becomes, well, how much is this all going to cost? Now, the cost, the pricing models, the levels are going to indicate the different features that are going to be available. So whether or not SSL is going to be available, scaling is going to be available, automatic backups, the ability to do deployment from dev staging to production, and so forth. All of that is going to vary based on the pricing level. And again, you know, we need a t-shirt. There's an MVA for that. I do want to highlight that coming up January 14th, that we are going to have an MVA on beginning Azure websites. So if you want to see the power and capability that Azure Websites has to offer, come join us on the 14th. You can check all of that out. Now, for our purposes, we got a very simple little app here. So we're just going to go with our free websites. And our free websites are a perfect little playground.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
Exactly. Playground's a perfect word for it.
Yep.
It's just a place you can go. You want to explore, try putting websites out in the cloud. And cloud is one of those buzzwords these days. You are going to be dealing with the cloud. So
absolutely,
you got to start learning it somewhere.
Exactly. And so you get up to 10 of these. But keep in mind, you're only allowed 5 concurrent connections. So again, it's a playground. It's just some place to go off and poke at things and just kind of see, all right, well, what's going on? Well, let's go in and see what's going on. Now, Susan did everything through the Azure portal.
Yep.
And that's cool. And I love the Azure portal, and it's a fantastic little tool there. But here's the thing. I'm in Visual Studio, Susan. Mm-hmm. I want to use Visual Studio, Susan.
Yep.
Can I use Visual Studio?
Yes.
Cool.
Which is awesome.
All right. I'm just going to use Visual Studio.
One less interface to learn.
Exactly. So I'm just going to right-click here, and I'm going to say Publish. And it's going to say, all right, well, choose your target. Microsoft Azure Websites, or Import or Custom, and a whole bunch of other options. In my case, I'm going to go with Microsoft Azure Websites. Click. And now it's going to say, all right, well, sign in. Okay, well, let me sign in. And let me just go ahead and cause a distraction over here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hi.
Causing a distraction.
Yep. That's a distraction.
Very, distraction.
Distraction.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. So this is the part where Susan says, so, meanwhile, I was talking earlier, one of the things I'm going to throw into the QA window, we were talking about ways to access Azure. I'm about to toss up in the Q&A window the link for where you access Azure education grants, because I was mentioning that ability to get the free Azure for anyone teaching courses, which is really popular because say you want to try web hosting and you want the students to build websites and deploy them or try storing Redis on Azure and so on. We do have those great educational grants. So I'm going to put that into the chat window in case anybody's looking for it.
Perfect. Okay, so now back over to my system. Now you're going to notice that I can deploy this out to a little site. You'll notice we have a little last minute test that we had from the other night. I'm just going to go in and click new. And it's going to say, all right, well, give me the name of the site. And let's say MVA Flask. It's green. The subscription, I'm going to go in with Visual Studio Premium. It's going to ask me for my region. I'm going to go with West US. It's going to ask me for a database. I don't need a database because we're going to wind up calling Redis as a cloud service.
Okay.
So I don't need to create a brand new database here. So that's it. That's all I have to do. And then click Create. And then just a little back and forth here with a little green. Waiting, waiting. There I go with the little dance again.
All right.
We're waiting. We're waiting. We're waiting. Now again, you know, people will look at that and go, you know, why is it taking so long? Think about what it's doing.
Yeah, it's still a lot simpler than going out, purchasing a server, bringing the server home, installing an operating system on that server, installing IIS on that server, configuring it and trying to set up all the security for all of that, and then figuring out how do you deploy your website to that server that you just bought and installed and did all that work on.
Exactly. I got better things to do with my time. It's football season, you know? All right.
Hockey season.
Rabbit season. So now that this has come up, I'm now going to just simply hit publish. That's it. And so now what it did is it created a free website for me automatically. It is taking all of my code here, it's packaging it all up, and it's sending all of that up to our little MVA Flask site. And in about another 12 seconds here, it's going to pop up a copy of Internet Explorer that's going to show me the website that we have created. So we'll just kind of wait. Again, moving the mouse, and you'll notice, sure enough, there's the little create a question. So I'm going to click on create a question, and this is going to be Azure, and can I create free websites? And the answer is yes. I'm going to hit submit question. It created it. And then I'm also going to go in and I'm now going to say / question Azure. Enter. Can I create free websites? And the answer, of course, is yes, and hit submit. And all of this is now done on the cloud. This has all been deployed out to Azure. And the couple of things that I like here is the fact that this is so much simpler. And I know we've been sort of beating this into the ground, but it is worth highlighting one last time, and I promise this will be the last time. This is so much simpler than going off and having to set up a server on your own. And you'll notice that the Visual Studio tooling here is pretty impressive. So when I was ready to deploy out my website, I was able to just do that straight from here. And you would also notice that if I went back into Visual Studio, I made a couple of changes. Imagine I made a couple of changes.
Okay.
I go in, I make a couple of changes, and I'm ready to push these out again. It's just as simple as right-click and publish.
Cool. It doesn't matter if you're doing it locally or if it's out on Azure. When you say publish, it sends it to wherever you wanted it sent.
Exactly. That was pretty cool.
That is pretty amazing. I mean, literally, you know, we've taken that website, but we built from scratch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, if somebody
with really only one error.
And you know what really boggles my mind is I have to admit, if somebody had told me 2 years ago, I'd be doing a Microsoft course showing someone how to deploy Python and Redis onto Microsoft Azure, I might have thought they were nuts. I gotta say, times have changed. It's kind of cool that we're sitting here doing Python and Redis, which are open source technologies, and putting them out there on Microsoft Azure.
You know, I have to say, kind of just following right along with that, is that I've been a Microsoft guy pretty much through and through since about NT4. I actually got my CNA on NetWare 312. Again, I'm dating myself here. But since NT4, I've pretty much been all Microsoft. I had a little bit of a tangent with Linux. I did Linux for a little bit, just kind of played around with it. I did just enough Cold Fusion to be dangerous with it. But outside of that, it's been Windows, it's been SQL, C#, web forms, and every other Microsoft technology. Do you want to know when I started getting into and doing open source? Are you ready for this? When I got a job at Microsoft. True story.
But yeah,
so it's a very different world.
Yeah.
Now
you don't have to publish your websites to Microsoft Azure. There are other places you can host websites.
Mm-hmm.
Said that's Azure is one of the great places to store it, but certainly that's not your only choice. You can absolutely do research on other web hosting options as well. But yeah, the Azure is very easy. It integrates really well with Visual Studio. And there is the support for Redis on Azure as well. So it was a nice example of a place where you can put everything.
Yeah. So with that, the big thing to highlight now to everybody, I don't have a slide, unfortunately, of the what did we learn and now what can you do with this? Well, what did we learn? We learned how to get in and start working in Flask. So we started off kind of talking about the basics of Flask. We rolled that into setting up our templates and detecting the request types and responding to it. Then we added on a data store and closed all of that out with publishing. And that really that's the core toolkit that you need to create any type of application. So you now have enough that you could go off and create some simple applications. So maybe you needed to set up something to do polling. Maybe you needed something to...
Maybe you're setting up your own hockey pool.
Yeah,
kind of thing. That kind of stuff. Absolutely. Sorting the schedule for your volleyball team and sharing it. And people can report their game scores at the end of a game. So you're keeping track of a sports league.
The way that I learned ASP, and this was, again, years ago, but the way that I learned ASP was actually going off and creating a website for our fantasy football league.
There you go.
Because it doesn't matter what you're doing to practice as long as you're exercising the muscle. That's the important part. Well, with that, what do you say we call it a day here? I think we've done a fair amount here. So a couple of real quick things. Number one is you're going to notice a little poll down at the very bottom. Please do go ahead and answer that poll really quickly. Mm-hmm. Number two, do thank everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you guys had as much fun as we did.
So are we done?
I believe we are done. No more eye patches required. And I want to thank everybody for joining. Please check out the couple of next Web Wednesdays. I believe the next date that we're back is January 14th on a Web Wednesday. There are other MVAs between now and then. Susan, again, always a pleasure.
Vielen Dank. Auf Wiedersehen. Ciao. It's been awesome.
So long.
Konnichiwa.
Thank you very much.
That's all in this course. I hope you enjoyed and learned this course very well. Now we will start with building responsive UI with Bootstrap. This course will help you to develop good skills to create rich UIs for users and tips for building great-looking applications. A user interface designer earns an average salary of 4 to 8 lakhs per year. This content has been created by our partner Microsoft, and we have Christopher and Jon with us to help you in building responsive UI with Bootstrap. Bootstrap is the most popular HTML, CSS, JavaScript framework for developing responsive UIs. The topics that we are going to cover in this course include Introduction to Bootstrap, Bootstrap components, page design, Visual Studio and ASP.NET integration JavaScript, functions using Bootstrap with less, and Bootstrap in the real world. Now let's start with the Introduction to Bootstrap, in which we will learn about the history of Bootstrap and creating responsive pages along with an introduction to Visual Studio integration. So let's begin.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, welcome, and thank you for joining us with building responsive UI with Bootstrap.
Bootstrap.
Yeah, should be a great day. We're both very excited, both very amped up over here.
Yep.
So Barry in the back is very excited back there. And with that, let's go ahead and get rolling.
Jump right
in. If you want to introduce yourself,
Sure.
I'll do the same afterwards.
I'm Jon Galloway. I've been on some MVAs before, so I'm happy to be back. So I work on the Azure Evangelism team. I focus on just web dev stuff in general on the Microsoft platform, and so a lot of ASP.NET MVC stuff, ASP.NET in general. So just happy to be here.
Excellent. And you had a little experience on The Price is Right.
That's true. Yeah, I was just out of college, and we had some friends say we got some extra tickets. I show up, so we were like, yeah, sure, show up for The Price is Right. And next thing I know, I won the Showcase Showdown. I have a car. I did blow that car up. I burned it out. I drove it for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool. Welcome back, and welcome to all of you. As for me, my name is Christopher Harrison. I'm a longtime geek. Still miss my Commodore 64. Yes. Best computer ever. I presently employed here at Microsoft as a content developer, focused in on ASP.NET Web Technologies and Office 365 from a developer standpoint. And I don't have a really cool experience like The Price is Right. I've run a couple of marathons.
Yeah.
That's really about it. I do four things. I eat, I sleep, I work, I run. So it's not a very exciting life. And a four-legged child. Yes, a dog. Oh. He's half border collie, half lab, all personality.
Oh, I was worried.
But anyway, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about. Let's kind of focus in on everything here. So we're going to start off Module 1 with our ubiquitous introduction to Bootstrap.
Yeah, and here we just want to kind of lay the groundwork. We want to talk about, give the overview and kind of anything that you miss there. If we're talking quickly, don't worry about it because we're just kind of spelling everything out at the beginning.
Exactly, yeah. Just kind of going over the high-level odds and ends, 30,000 feet, if you will.
Yep.
Module 2 is going to be Bootstrap components.
Right, and so components are great. They're a way to make your site look good. They're each one does just a small, simple thing. If you're familiar with web forms, these are similar to server controls, just on the desk or on the client side, right?
Yep.
So.
Perfect. Module 3 is going to be page design. The biggest thing that I'll be talking about in there is going to be the grid system and how to lay everything out. That can be a little bit tricky your first time through it, so I want to talk a bit about that, and then also talk about how to put together forms inside of there.
And I know you're excited about that because you get to draw on your screen.
I do get to draw on my screen. That makes me very happy.
For people who ask, these are planar PCT 2785 monitors. They're really fun. They're touchscreen, and so we just get to draw all over them, and that's really why we keep showing up.
Yes, it's really just for that experience right there. So you need a seal here and a seal here. Anyway, obscure reference just for my own entertainment. Module 4, Visual Studio and ASP.NET integration. One of the biggest changes that came along about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it was a year ago.
Yeah, with Visual Studio 2013 was the fact that Bootstrap Visual Studio now uses Bootstrap as the default template with the ASP.NET projects. And you'll notice that when you go in, create the template, in fact, that'll be one of our first demos, is it will automatically use Bootstrap. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about how Visual Studio gets along with Bootstrap and also how to go in and customize that template generation so that way you have better ability to get it to automatically do what you want it to do rather than always having to go back and change things.
Yep, and what's cool here, this applies for MVC developers, web forms developers, PHP developers, anybody, right? Because this is, Bootstrap is an open source common, it's just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, so it's going to work anywhere. But it's great that it's bundled in with ASP.NET. And it's also cool that Visual Studio added a bunch of support for that. So we're going to be showing off some ways that you can use Visual Studio effectively with Bootstrap.
Exactly. The next module is going to be Bootstrap and JavaScript. Now, as John just mentioned, Bootstrap does use HTML, uses CSS, uses JavaScript. I have a confession here to make already, which is the fact that Module 5 is not really titled appropriately. Well, it is, because it is going to be about JavaScript, but what you're not going to see is JavaScript. Now, one of the very cool things about Bootstrap is the fact that a lot of those different things like alerts and dialogues and so forth that would require typically some level of JavaScript, you'll notice you can actually do that by just going in, decorating things with the appropriate classes, with the appropriate attributes, and everything just works. Mm-hmm. So we'll go in and take a look at how you can do all of that in Module 5.
Yep. I'm really excited about Module 6. This is, if you've been using Bootstrap for a while, this one still is something that's maybe new to you. And this solves a problem people run into with Bootstrap. So Bootstrap generally works by adding classes to your HTML, and then that kind of lights up the CSS and JavaScript. The problem is then your HTML gets a little bloated, and it gets all these extra
class after class after class.
Yeah. And so what's great is you can use less to compile CSS, and so you use these mix-ins. Mm-hmm. You can write, crisp, clean, semantic HTML, and then pull in Bootstrap behaviors. So I got some really fun demos there.
Fantastic mix-ins. Yeah. I'm thinking there's going to be more food references today.
I sure hope so.
And then Module 7 is going to be Bootstrap in the real world, which is going to give us an opportunity to talk a little bit about how to now integrate Bootstrap into your application, talk a little bit about Bootstrap but not Bootstrap, so that way maybe it doesn't necessarily look like Bootstrap, or maybe it will, and that's okay. We'll talk about all of that. And then also kind of close off talking a bit more about MVC integration and how to help make the different things that Bootstrap's going to do for you a bit more dynamic. So we'll close all of that off in Module 7. And then Module 8 will be sort of a what's next, that if you really liked this, where do you go from here? And so we'll talk a bit about what you can do to maybe strengthen your knowledge of Bootstrap and maybe of ASP.NET in general. One of the things that you may have noticed in the break slides is the fact that there is going to be a SignalR MVA coming up that you'll actually be doing with Brady Gaster. Yeah. I'll actually be next door recording a different session on Python. So right. So that'll actually be a lot of fun. I'll be doing that with Susan Ibach, Hockey Geek Girl. So. Okay. But yeah, you'll be here doing that with Brady.
I will. We'll be yelling across.
Yes, exactly. We'll start throwing things at one another. So the other studio is just that direction right over there. Yep. So we don't have a camera that points that way, though.
Unfortunately.
So yeah. But in any event, let's talk a little bit about expectations. And kind of what the target audience is here. You're going to notice that we are focused in on people that are new to Bootstrap. So we expect that you've done HTML, CSS, some JavaScript, maybe obviously some MVC web forms. We'll be doing a lot of MVC as part of our demos, a fair amount of web forms as part of our demos. Mm-hmm. But really the biggest thing is that you're familiar already with HTML, CSS, and really kind of new to Bootstrap, that maybe you went in, you downloaded Visual Studio, you right-clicked and said File, New Project, and then all of a sudden you realized, oh, wait a minute, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. What in the world is all of this? Right. Hopefully we're going to help explain all of that to you.
Yeah. That said, even if you are familiar with Bootstrap, definitely pick up some new things. I mean, this is a full day of Bootstrap, right? So, but we really are, don't be scared if you don't know what Bootstrap is or how to use it. That's what we're going to start with.
Exactly. Now, if you are looking to go grab our material, I don't have the URL up on the slide, but you'll notice that it's on the break slides. And that is where all of our source code is going to be uploaded onto. Just like we did last time that we were together, we went in, created a GitHub repository. So all of our source code will wind up there as we go through the day and kind of go through our demos, which I guess now is a sort of perfect time. There we go. There's the source code. There's the URL right there. So Bootstrap MVA Git. Is where you can go download that. Now, one of the things that's going to wind up happening is John and I are going to do a lot of demos live. Some of it will be pre-baked, but a lot of it's going to be live. here's our global apology right now. Something will probably go wrong.
I like to bill it a different way. I like to say, here's our promise to you. We will break some stuff, and that's part of the fun of watching us code live.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah, see, just like that. So when something goes awry, and it will, there's our apology. But it's always kind of a nice learning lesson to be able to go back in and show off how to fix all of that. The other thing that's worth highlighting is the tool, of course, that we're going to be using is going to be Visual Studio. If you haven't already played around with it, you can go download Visual Studio Express, and basically, a lot of what we're going to be doing will work in Express.
Actually, pretty much everything. So you can go to visualstudio.com, and then there's a download link for Visual Studio Express for web. Make sure you get the web one. And there's one of the key extensions we'll be showing here is Web Essentials.
Yep.
I'll show off some of those things there. And that works with Express for web now. So.
Yeah, and that's a relatively new feature.
Yes,
that now works with Express. Perfect. For those of you in the community, and I should really actually update that slide, that's 2 million registered users that are there. Earn points while you learn. And we don't have the right code on there. Barry, if you have that break slide handy and can throw that up there with the right voucher code.
And while we're yelling at Barry, we don't have the time counting down.
There we go. So there is our little voucher and BLD. The slide mistake is mine. I'll own up to that. I told you there was going to be a mistake. But there's your little code, BLD RSPUI boot, and that will expire on September 29th of this year. So go get your 50 points. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do some Bootstrap.
So that sort of begs a question.
What is it?
It's a good question. And there's the answer. And the answer, by the way, is grabbed from getbootstrap.com.
Yep.
And it's the most popular HTML, CSS, JavaScript framework for developing responsive mobile-first projects on the web.
So originally started by Twitter developers.
Correct.
And then it was always open source from the beginning, but they kind of branched out. This is kind of a separate thing. So it used to be called Twitter Bootstrap. Now it's just Bootstrap.
Yep.
And exactly what's said there. It's extremely popular, and it's great for responsive mobile first. So that was actually a change with Bootstrap 3. It is kind of mobile first. So this is. We'll be talking about exactly what that is, responsive, very soon. But
exactly.
But popular for that reason.
Yeah. So that sort of leads us right into kind of a why use it, which will also help explain exactly what it is. And, the first big reason as to why to use it is CSS can be tricky.
Yes.
That there's oftentimes with CSS where I feel like I'm just tricking the browser into doing what I want it to do. That I've seen this mug out there that says CSS is awesome. There we go. And then it's got a little box around the outside of it, and the box just goes like that, which is, so frequently how we feel with CSS. And CSS can be a little bit tricky. It can be a little bit difficult. And I like to avoid using that word, but it is true. It can be a little bit difficult to work with. But as we all know, we should be using CSS to lay out our site. It makes it that much easier to change as time goes on. It's going to give us the best browser support, and it's also going to help when it comes to screen readers, search engines, crawlers, etc. So we want to use CSS, but it can be tricky.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about browsers, dealing with cross-browser support can be a pain. Mm-hmm. I remember the good old days when it was really just Netscape and Internet Explorer. 2 browsers.
Right.
That was it. And I remember complaining about having to deal with 2 whole browsers.
Well, and back then there were periods where you wouldn't get a new browser for a few years.
Exactly.
Right? And
exactly.
now it's every about 2 or 3 minutes.
I think there's a new updated version that just came out of fill-in browser here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it happens constantly. And then on top of that, having to deal with all the different screen sizes that we have this day that, back a good 10, 15 years ago, it was basically just all 1024 by 768. Easy to deal with. Now we've got desktops, now we've got tablets, now we've got, mobile phones. I've got my
by the way,
Lumia
each
1020
of
over
those
there.
has a different browser version as well, right?
Oh, exactly.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That depending on whether or not you just got the Cyan update, it's going to be a slightly different version of Internet Explorer there on your phone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, having to deal with all of that really becomes a challenge. And I don't know about you, but I've got better things to do with my time than to have to deal with all of that. It also helps you lay out your pages that much better. Doing basic tasks that we've all been told. Don't lay out your pages using tables. And I'll be the first to admit, I laid out my pages with tables for probably the better part of a decade and a half. and the reason for it was it worked. And it worked across all browsers. It wasn't what we were supposed to do, but it was what we all did. And so Bootstrap is going to help make all of that much simpler, that in the end, Bootstrap is going to make it that much easier. It's going to make it that much easier for you to abide by standards, for you to create cross-browser sites, and sites that are going to scale from the desktop all the way down to a mobile phone without necessarily having to pay a lot of attention to each one of those possible screen sizes and so forth, but giving you the flexibility to do so when those scenarios warrant.
And, I'm one of those weirdos that actually, I love CSS, and I'll be on there if I go to a page and something's not lining up, I'll be in the browser tools fixing their CSS and saying, come on, guys, this is all you have to do. Right?
Are you sending up pull requests?
I have done that. Okay, so, but still, making the right thing to do easy is a really good thing, right?
Yes.
So we all know we should be supporting all different browsers. We all know that we should be writing responsive sites that scale down, so I don't have to write separate code to work well on different form factors, and so that people on a mobile device, which is huge now, mobile device usage is just blowing up. Everybody's using mobile devices. We should be doing it. Even if you know how to do it, it still takes time. And so it's great for it to just work, right? And the whole idea, the name Bootstrap means, it's just going to get you started so quickly.
Exactly. So. I think that's now going to be my favorite phrase, and it's going to be the one that I'm going to keep going back to, is it makes doing the right thing easy. I think that sums it up perfectly. I love it. Okay. With that, let's talk then a little bit about some of the different features. And keep in mind that as we go through this first module, we're going to be doing a handful of demos, but our demos are going to be really fast because we just want to get in, kind of show off real quickly, hey, here's this, here's this, here's this. We've got the rest of the day to dig on into it. So when we hit components or when we hit the grid system and you're still maybe kind of scratching your head going, okay, exactly how does all of this work?
Yeah.
We're going to dig into this as we go forward.
If we covered it all in the first hour, you guys would all leave, and then where's the fun in that?
Exactly.
So, yeah, this is a preview of coming attractions.
And then we'd have to figure out what to do for the rest of the day. So, although it is gorgeous outside.
It is. It's
so,
actually nice.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the last big days of summer up here. So, in any event, is there any chance of moving the studio outside?
We'll have class on the lawn today.
There we go. We'll have class on the lawn. I love it. In any event, so let's talk about what Bootstrap can do.
Yep.
So first of all, one of the biggest things with Bootstrap is themes and the community source. Fire up Bing. Do a real quick search for Bootstrap themes, and you will probably see 50, 60, 70,000 results. I'm probably exaggerating by only a little bit.
There is a ton.
Yeah, there's a ton out there that you can go off and just grab, maybe make a couple last little tweaks, plug into your site, and then you're up and running, and away you go from there.
And what's great with that is because of the way Bootstrap works, that is all just plugged in using CSS, JavaScript, HTML.
Exactly.
And so you don't need to change your HTML in order to take advantage of a new theme.
That's exactly it.
Plug it in and it reskins everything.
Yep.
You'll see it all work. So
yeah, and what's great about that is that you can go in then and set up a couple little pages and kind of see how everything looks, and then just go in and just start swapping out Holy buckets. They just threw up the number of results in Bing. Over 2 million. That's crazy.
2,290,000.
Yeah, so there's obviously a pretty good-sized community out there.
And we should say both, I mean, there's a lot of free ones. There's also a lot of great paid ones, too.
Right.
So there's a great range of simple free ones up to, you know, pay 30, 50, 100 bucks and get a really nice site redesign. You know?
Exactly. And what's great is, just like John was mentioning earlier, because of the fact that all of this is driven by classes and attributes, that you can have your site already up and running. You could be testing it, could be doing user acceptance testing. Go grab a theme that you like, just plug it in, hit refresh, it's now using that theme. You know what, I really don't like that one, let me go try another one. You throw that one in there, and then hit refresh, and away you go from there. And it really is just adding in a couple of brand new files, and then hitting refresh, and John will actually demo that here in a little while. Yep. The next big thing with Bootstrap is responsive. That what we're going to see is the fact that as you resize your browser, as you go all the way down to that mobile phone, it will automatically scale down to that. It will automatically stack things vertically, and it will automatically give you the ability to show hide based on those sizes. So it makes it very easy to go off and do. Mm-hmm. The way that it does that is by utilizing a grid system. So that way you don't have to go in, lay everything out with tables. You can just use grids to do that.
And what's cool is there's, as you'll be showing, there's multiple grids here. So you can say for a wide screen on a big desktop, you know, here's the grid I want to use. And then for a tiny little phone, I have a different layout. And so it's very easy to define all these multiple layouts for all your content, and it just works. And then if you want to change it, move a class here and there and everything, just
works.
Yeah.
And you know, that nice. Sort of brings us back to our old MVC days. Yeah. It just works.
Right.
The next big thing that Bootstrap is going to give you is components. That if I'm looking for just a little checkbox to appear, I don't have to go off and search for that.
And you've got some examples listed here on the slide. So things like, you know, pagination, buttons.
Yep.
You know, there's buttons built into HTML, but they don't look good, right?
No, they
don't look the same on different browsers and all that. And so making good looking buttons, why think about that?
Exactly.
Yep.
And then last but not least is fantastic Visual Studio support, which brings us into our first demo. So with that, let me go in and escape out of my slides here. Maybe. Discard my ink. There we go. And aha, there we go. Okay, so there's my little Visual Studio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new solution here. And let's do this under C#. And I'm going to go with an ASP.NET web application. And this will be Bootstrap MVA demos, and let's just give this a name of Hello Bootstrap, because of course we're required by law to do something with you know, hello in it. So what I want you to notice here real quickly is the fact that I've just chosen an ASP.NET application. So I'm just going in and I'm just using that built-in project template. That's it. Now let me go in and hit OK. And now I'll go in and choose MVC. And then I'll hit, actually I'm not going to host it in the cloud. And then let me go ahead and hit OK. And then let that go along. By the way, that is one of the cool little features that came along relatively recently. Is that ability just to say, I want to host this in the cloud, punch in whatever your Azure information is, and it will basically pull down everything that you would need to handle publishing.
Yep. So, and it creates that you can do during publishing. You've been able to do for a while, but this actually does as you're doing file new project, set everything up.
Yep.
Create a database, create website and everything for you.
That is just awesome. Okay. Now, let me go into Solution Explorer. I'm going to move my properties window around. And what I want to highlight one more time here is that I went in and I just simply did File New Project. And you're going to notice, whoa, there we go. We're going to zoom really far in. You're going to notice right out of the box, there's Bootstrap, all set, ready to go. So I didn't do anything. It's already set up. Now, for those of you that are familiar with MVC, You're already familiar with layouts. Now, for those of you who don't do MVC, a layout is really sort of a master page in web forms terms, or it's just the outer structure. I always like to call it, it's a Jell-O mold, that it's going to set up the structure of whatever it is that you're creating.
Kind of the container for the site.
Exactly. So when you want your banner up top, you want your copyright logo down at the very bottom, you want your login in one location, your layout is going to do all of that. And so if I go in and I open up, come here, my layout, there we go. What you're going to notice inside of here is that it's already making the call out to, in this case, styles render. And I don't want to get a whole lot into bundling and minification and all of that. But what this is doing in a nutshell is this is sending down all of our Bootstrap CSS. So it's already made that call up at the very top. And then down below, down here, just at the very bottom, is going to be the call to all of the scripts, in particular, the Bootstrap scripts as well. You're also going to notice, again, right out of the box, is that it's already got the structure for me to set up my little Bootstrap. So up at the very top, you're going to notice that I've got my little nav bar right there, and that's going to give me my navigation up at the very top. You're going to notice that if I scroll on down, here we go, is that here is our little body content container, and again, that's set up for Bootstrap. So right out of the box, it already had that set up for me. And if I go grab, oops, let's get out of that mode. There we go. If I go grab that index page, you're going to notice real quickly here that it's got my Jumbotron right here. That's going to give me the banner up at the very top. And you're going to notice that it's going to be setting up my first row, and that eventually is going to be my grid. Now, real quickly here, and we're going to talk more about grids in just a moment, and then we'll have basically a full module on it. But your grid is almost going to behave like a table. Because even though we don't want to use tables to lay things out, laying things out conceptually like a table makes sense. Because it gives me very easy ability to say, well, I want something to display here, I want something to display here, I want something to display there, I want something to display there. It's very easy conceptually. So even though we don't want to use HTML tables, we still want to use those concepts of rows and columns because it's very easy to determine where we want things to be placed.
Right. So you get the advantages of a table, but tables don't scale well and all that.
Exactly. Screen readers have a really hard time with them.
They're not flexible for you later. If you want to change your HTML, you've got all your stuff pigeonholed in different table cells. That's a pain.
Exactly.
Right? So this fixes that.
Exactly. Yep. Tables, but not tables.
Yep.
And so you'll notice that if I go in and Control F5, trigger, and give it a second, waiting, and poof. And now you're going to notice, that's a power I didn't even know I had. You're going to notice that sure enough, there is our nav bar all the way up at the very top, Bootstrap. There's our Jumbotron, Bootstrap. There's our little buttons. There is the little grid that I was referring to a second ago, one row, and then breaking down into a couple of different columns. Technically, it's 12 columns, and they've divided each up into 4, but we'll get into that in just a couple of minutes. But the big takeaway that I want you to get out of all of this is the fact that I didn't do anything. I just went File, New Project, and it already included that support for Bootstrap. And something tells me, I'm going out on a limb here, but there's probably a few people that are viewing that grabbed Visual Studio, maybe they'd been using an earlier version, and then they downloaded 2013, they went in, they said File, New Project, and they just went, what in the world just happened? I have to admit, that was my response.
Yeah.
That first time I went, whoa! And then I went, hey, this is cool. And then I started digging more into Bootstrap from there. Fantastic. What do you say we talk a little bit about responsive UI and how that works?
Yeah, I thought we were going to, am I supposed to talk themes?
Themes, sorry.
Let me do a
themes.
quick look at themes.
Themes.
And it's a very quick look. So the whole idea, we talked before about themes and being able to kind of reskin everything. So here's an example on my slide here where I've got, the site exactly like Christopher just created.
Yep.
Drop in a new theme. And I mean, this is just an example theme I picked, but I want to show, kind of, it's relatively big visual difference here. And this includes, not just the simple things like colors, but it also is including, different fonts. It's including different, all kinds of stuff. It reskins everything, right? So let's just jump into a quick demo there. So I'm going to, I'll create a new project. We had a question earlier from somebody that said, where's the site master and that kind of thing. And so that is, we were creating an MVC project. This is the same sort of thing that you'll see in web forms as well. So we will do some web forms. I've got an example later doing web forms. The great thing is, since it's HTML, it's the same thing. So I'm going to go into this, and if we look at the content, you'll see here's Bootstrap CSS and bootstrap.min.css. So if I hop over to a site like bootswatch.com, so you'll see a lot of different, this is a very common one people will look at.
And this is actually one of my favorite little ones that if all I'm looking to do is just get something real quick up and running right now, this is a great place to go look, because as you're seeing there's a whole bunch of different themes that are available, and like Jon is going to show here, it's very easy to go in, download, and then just start playing from there.
Yep. So as an example, here's Superhero. I take a look at it on here. I can click Preview. Okay, so it reskinned, it shows this site with that. And also, take a look at those buttons. Like these here are square buttons as opposed to rounded corners. So, it shows all the typography. I look at this and I say, yeah, I like that general look, right? So now I can click on this, and I want to download that CSS and overwrite my other one. We'll talk later about, kind of the right way to do this. There's a more kind of advanced way. But so I want to say here, copy full path. And then I'm going to just overwrite it right over the top. So I'm going to say, click on that, and I will say, save as. I'm just going to hop to there, save. Yes, I want to overwrite.
And you did a right click on that Bootstrap min CSS to bring up that dialog. Okay.
Yep, that's it. Okay, so now I'm going to run it, and I actually should have run it first to show you, the original. But you just saw the one there.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll run this, and so this is going to spin everything up. Exact same HTML that you saw before, but this is just a new theme. So we look at that. We say, this is nice, but for whatever reason, my boss isn't happy with it. He wants something that's a little bit more cheerful.
Just can't make him happy.
Light and happy. So we'll go with journal, right? So this is crisp like a new sheet of paper. So we'll preview that. And yeah, that seems nice. It's not really my flavor, but my boss seems to like it, right? So I'm going to say save as. We'll overwrite it. Okay. And then we'll hop over here. And now here's a neat thing. I didn't hit F5. We'll talk about why in a second if this is surprising you. I didn't hit F5 and this just refreshed and showed that. Well, this is nice, but I'm still not completely sold on it. And after complaining enough, then finally I tell my boss, and we settle on cerulean. And so I'm going to save target as, save. Okay. And then we like this and we settle here. The reason I just went through a few of them is I want to show that it's really, really quick. This is my site, and it's running. We'll show later an example. It
looks pretty good.
It does. So my blog uses Bootstrap, and I'll regularly go in and just change colors and move stuff around on there and pick different themes. And it's really that simple.
Yep.
So that's really all we're showing with themes is just...
Actually, do me a favor. Go back to the screen that you just had there.
Yeah, this one?
Right there.
Yeah.
Now, I want to highlight something about it because it leads perfectly into the next little demo that I want to do and thing that I want to talk about. Is I want you to notice here on Jon's screen that everything is a single column. Now, just like I did, Jon just simply went in and created a brand new project. You didn't tweak anything there.
Nothing's different.
Nothing's different. But if you look at Jon's screen, you're going to notice that he has just the single column. And then if we cut over to my screen here, you're going to notice that I've got 3 columns.
What is going on?
That's a good question. And that leads us perfectly into, and I'm going to go back to my slides here real quick, a responsive layout. That the whole goal here, or one of the main goals, I shouldn't say the whole goal, but one of the main goals is to make sure that this is going to work on every device that somebody's going to use.
We got a question, by the way, I have to
Yeah.
answer. Somebody was asking, how are you drawing on your screen? So this is built into PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, right now this is PowerPoint. A little bit later, I'll be using Zoom It, which is a tool that was put together by Mark Rusinovich. If you just head on over to Bing and do a search for Zoom It, you'll be able to find it from there. And then it's just, basically, and we can kick on over to my screen. Control-2 will allow you to start drawing, and then there's different colors. And
So much fun.
Yeah, it is. We could almost do an MVA on Zoom It.
Yeah.
In any event, right now I'm just using PowerPoint to do my drawing, but let's bring it back into our responsive design here. Is again, like I was talking about before, I don't have time to worry about every possible browser on every possible device on every possible screen. That I want to be able to focus on making it look good across all of them and make that as easy as possible. And that's exactly what that responsive design is going to do for me.
I just have to say, I helped my wife with a simple WordPress site recently, and it is really hard to do. It's okay to do big screen and tiny screen, but then we're doing it for my brother-in-law, and he said, this doesn't look great on my laptop, and then someone else said this doesn't look good on my iPad, and there are so many different screen widths that you have to think about. So even if you know media queries pretty well, it's still a good amount of work.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. So if we come back to my system here, I've got my site back up. And again, I didn't do anything. Got my site back up. And you'll notice that as I resize my browser window, let's just kind of bring it on in from the right, you're going to notice that there's already a little change there. That it popped, and you'll notice there's a little bit more gutter space on the outside there. And if I just kind of keep scrolling on over, give it another second, and poof, and now everything is down to a single column. So I didn't do anything fancy there, but it's automatically updating, trying to display that information in the best possible way, that responsive design.
Yep.
So, and it'll even do it on down to the phone level as well if you're looking at a phone.
Yeah, can we pop over to my screen real quick? This is the incredibly quick demo. So here's the site. I'm going to run it. This is the one that we were just looking at where we were retheming everything. Looks great. Now I'm going to go in Visual Studio, and I'm going to say I would like to view this on a Windows Phone emulator. And let's give it a 720p screen. So this is going to fire up the emulator when I hit play. I do actually need to do that. So it'll spin up the emulator, and then we'll just see
I recognize that phone.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, mine's yellow on the outside. Yeah, yellow, and a lot of fingerprints on it.
Right.
In any event.
No, not many fingerprints on this. Okay, so here we've got this screen. Notice it's scaled correctly. It's got a nice mobile menu here.
Yep.
And the key important thing is there is no code anywhere saying, is this a mobile phone?
Right.
It's all based on the screen width.
Yep. And again, we didn't do anything fancy.
No.
File, new project. It uses Bootstrap, and that's what Bootstrap is going to do for you.
Yep.
That's all in this episode. I hope this tutorial was helpful. In the next episode, we will continue with the same topic, which is Introduction to Bootstrap. Is your mind drinking with questions, queries, or doubts? Do you wish to learn more? Then visit our website, www.millionlights.org, and post your questions in our forums. We will be extremely happy to clear all your doubts. If you missed anything and want to rewatch it, You can download it from our website or can watch it online as well. You can also participate in our webinars, discussions with the subject experts, as well as get Microsoft certification on various courses through our website. You can also find us on Facebook by the name Millionlights, as well as on Twitter. For more such interesting tutorials on coding and app development and building rich UIs, keep watching Microsoft Hour of Code, brought to you by Millionlights. Thank you.